All right, finally all the parts for this rear are here. We're ready to start going back together. Don't make this mistake. I used to, when I lived in New Jersey, have a really big parts store local to me that had literally everything for all these old cars in stock. So I'd be able to get pinion shims and all your bearings and your races and seals and gaskets, and they always had everything. I've been running around down here in Florida all over, accumulating all this stuff. I was finally exceeding over $180 for this install kit, and I was like, something just seems not right. So finally, I just got smart. Like I said, I've been out of this game for a while, and in a new area, so I don't really know who all is down here. But I finally went on Strange Engineering's website. They have an install kit for $100. All right, it gives you your gasket, which I don't use, but some people use them. It gives you your inner and outer pinion bearings and the races. Gives you both your carrier housing, your posi unit bearings and races for the sides. Gives you a whole pack of pinion shims, whole pack of shims to set your backlash for the pos unit. Gives you your seal, gives you marking compound to check it when you're done. Gives you a new nut for the pinion yoke, new washer, and a new crush collar. So this is absolutely the way to go. It was half the price. I have to go return all this other stuff, which is not a big deal, but just to save that almost $100 by the time, or about $60 by the time you're done because of the shipping. But still, it's all in one kit. It's all here. It also gives you all the ring gear bolts and a lock washer. So when it comes to using ring gear bolts and lock washers, look at what unit you're using. Some want different things. I'm gonna leave that up to your guys' discretion. Call whoever you're using and ask them what bolts they want. I'm using what Strange sent. But so we're finally ready. I've got the posi unit over here. The posi unit is over here in the freezer. This is how I put these together. Get that in there, get that to contract a little bit, that steel, and then I take the ring gear, and the ring gear is down in the oven. Heat that up on 350 for about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and then the posi unit's in there for about a half an hour, and you will be ready to push them together because you can't just slide them together. They're actually a press fit. That makes it a lot easier. I also do it with the bearings. Heat them up a little because I don't have a press here. So we're going to push them on with a ball joint installer, ball joint press if you want to call it, but they're impacting, so we're just going to use it and just walk it down real easy. Okay, posi unit out of the freezer. Throw on some welding gloves or high temperature gloves, whatever you have, oven mitt, whatever. Grab your ring gear. How do you turn this thing off? Either off, I don't know, whatever. All right, and then we're going to face the ring gear down. Posi unit there. When you go to slide this up, make sure you're somewhat close because it does start going pretty quick once you're on there. Knock your glove off and just get any bolt started. Don't worry about thread locking it right away. Okay, I'm just going to run these down nice and slow. All right. Normally, you would always want to start like all your bolts first. With this, because these are so machined, so perfect, you don't have to be real crazy about it. Let's make sure that you guys can see this right. Strange, again, gives you everything. They gave me some red thread locks, so we're just going to dab a little of this on all the bolts. And then just start them all one at a time. Okay, now I'm using a real, why is this thing off? Light gun, because these are going to get torqued to 55 foot-pounds. We're just going to run them down just to get them, just to seat it. And then you just keep crossing your pattern. I don't know if any of you are drummers. I am. It's the same as tuning a drum head. So we're just going to run these up. And then we're just going to go straight across. Okay, They're all crushed down nice and even. Now I'll have somebody hold it and we'll get a torque wrench on it and click it in one place to 55. Ring gear bolts are 55. The cap bolts on the housing are 85. Again, just always double check that kind of stuff, but that gets the ring gear on there. It's already starting to cool down and this is warming up. So pretty much when you got to be quick when you put them together, because you know, when you have something so hot and something so cold, it immediately starts to like weld itself together almost. So it's you got to make sure you line it right up when you get it on there. You got a few seconds to play with. It's not like it's a split-second thing and you got to start all over, but you can see it's still like I can hold this now. It's not like real hot or nothing, but use your discretion. So we're gonna go clip these down now. Okay, now I just crack them loose because we're gonna torque them down. Just use the remaining thread lock. Make sure you got enough on there. Now this is cool, this gear is not going anywhere. So you guys know this is not being squeezed tight in here, it's just being held. So I'm not going crazy on it. I just always go one last time. Okay, I'll click the 55. That gets the ring gear on there. Now let's get the posi unit bearings on. Okay, onto the bearings. Happen to have part of my ball joint press that fits right inside this, right over the main piece of it. You just walk these down. You can freeze the posi unit again and heat the bearings up. I don't need to in this case. This will go on pretty easy. And then once you're down, make sure that you're not beating on this piece. So make sure it's centered and it fits over that also, which this does really well. And you can hear it just bottom out. And you're all set on that one. It's one side. Flip it over, do the same thing. A little bit of oil, just to help it a little. Get down to it. It's got to go a hair more. Again, make sure you're not beating on the unit. You got it centered up good. Bottom down, done. Can grease these up if you have a bearing greaser. The one you push down on. I don't know where mine is, so I'll just put them in. I'll throw some grease on them later before the unit goes in. Got to get the inside real clean. I'm going to get the races installed, and then we're going to press the bearings onto the pinion gear. And to clean it, I just a bunch of brake clean. Just get everything wiped out real good. All right, then with everything nice and clean, you can see everything's like nice and clean, no rust. Like I said, we wiped this down with a little bit of oil before I sent it. After I washed it. Now we'll get on some bearings. Installing these, it's just a regular old bearing race installer kit. They're not real expensive. I think I paid 20 bucks for this kit. It's not a real good one. Again, just like with the AN wrenches, they don't always all fit every bearing. So if you see the outer pinion bearing, this one fits perfect. Right inside the race. This one does not. And you don't want to drive in by the part that the bearing rides on, so it makes it a little more difficult, but just find one that you can flip over. That's how I'm going to install that one. So here we go. We'll move over to the rear of our bearing race and the tool. And you don't have to go crazy on these things. Just drive them as needed. Get the bearing squared up. And you'll hear it when they bottom out. There it is. So if you look, that's nice and straight. Same all the way around. And then you don't have to do this, but I always just kind of take the bearing, lay it in there. Make sure that it's all nice. So if you look and see with the bearing in there, everything's nice and square. Nothing's crooked, like the bearing's not like this or like this. You just want to make sure that races down. You can normally just look at the lip around it and tell. Like I said, once you hit it down, you hear it anyway. I'm just being a little bit particular because it's on video. So sometimes you just get something that starts to go a little crooked or whatever, so you can just fix it. Okay, and I realized my back had the camera the whole way up. So this one's almost in. I stopped to check and kind of screwed up. These are a little more difficult to do this way because, like I said, the thing's going to be backwards. But I just got to put this in the last little bit here. Again, you hear it and it bottoms out. If you're ever driving these in from this way, it can be a bit more difficult, but if you notice, because you don't have this flanged edge, this tapered edge here centering the piece in it, if you start to move it, if it starts to shift on you a little bit and the bearing goes a hair crooked, don't try and beat it in. What you do is go from the other side and just drive it out a little bit like we took the other ones out and square it up. That way you can go in straight. Like if you're hammering away to try to drive these in, something's wrong. Like they're not real hard to press in. I mean, you're not going to hit them in with like a little tack rubber mallet, but you don't have to go like, barbaric mode on them. So those two are in. Now we're going to get to work on the pinion gear. All right, starting out, I decided to go with 2 pinion shims, just a guess. I just check them, the dial indicator, make sure you're zeroed, and then take a measurement. These are the 2 I'm going to start with. They're nice and clean. They're brand new. Make sure there's no dirt or nothing on them so you get a correct reading. And then we're going to check these in. We got 0.74. So you got 0.074. So that's 74 thousandths. So 0.074. Then I know what my starting is. So when I do check, once I press the bearing onto the pinion shaft and I put it in, lock it down, get my drag, check my pinion depth, then you can guess from there. And you could have any combination. They give you a whole bunch of different thickness shims. Sometimes it's like 2 real smalls and a medium one thick one small one, whatever it comes out to what you need. You normally should only have to do it at most twice unless you get a really good guess on the first time. But once you know the difference, you'll be able to adjust your shim and you should be able to do it by the second time. So you don't have to keep, pushing the bearing on and off 100 times once this is pressed on here. So we'll get this on here next. Get it in, set the pinion depth tool up, and then check it. Alright, pinion gear out of the freezer. Check your shims on. Grab that bearing out of the oven. Freezer, oven on the bearing. Boom. That easy. It's all the way down. Shims are crushed, and then you can always just follow up and just make sure that it's seated. That doesn't work on that. Okay, so another trick is to take the old bearing and let that just press on. And obviously you don't want to drive that down too far. Just give it a shot. Done. Now you're gonna have to just knock this off because it just started on. The old bearing is always a great way to drive other stuff, but sometimes if you get a hair over that lip like that, it will start to press itself on, obviously. So, but normally if it's just started, you can just knock it right off. What's up? Okay, we are ready. Finally got this pinion depth up. Depending on what tool you're using, I use a TD Machine Products pinion depth tool. You simply take your main shaft, set your dial indicator in there, and then whatever, obviously follow the directions per your tool. This one for GM 12 bolt, you use the longer spline or the longest tip, and then you check it just in a vertical position to make sure that once you're on, I always do it a couple times just to make sure. Should be at 0. If you can see that, I'm at like 1,000th, so you have to just make a little tiny adjustment on that. Now we're right, every time you move it. Now we're right at 0. So you can't see that, but you get the hint here. So you get this zeroed out perfect. And once we know that it's calibrated, it's right on, then your tool is ready to go. Obviously select the correct bearing that you're going to be using. That gets a tool calibrated, so we'll set that aside. I always put all these parts right back so nothing gets screwy or lost. This one also uses a end that's magnetized. Again, check your directions for which end you have to use. This is the one for GM 12 bolt, 10 bolt, 12 bolt Dana. It's all the same on this kit. This is the one that'll actually be your reference point of what you're measuring to. Put that aside. Okay, before you put the pinion gear and the bearing that's already on it in with the crush collar, as you see here. Put your outside bearing in. I use a regular bearing packer, just put some grease through them, and then I'll just take a tiny bit and just, I don't like to install anything real dry, so I always just take a tiny bit of grease and just get a little something on here. Normally diffs, when I do them, I'll run them, spin the car, maybe go around a block real quick, and then let the car kind of just run, circulate all that new fluid through there, and then I usually drain them anyway. All right, so get your seal in. Get your bearing in there. Races are already installed. That was covered in, I don't know if it was this video. I've been making this video for so long because everything that went wrong. All right, now with the bearing in, now we're gonna do the seal. I just take a very, very light film of ultra gray. I mean, very light. You can see I got way too much on there. I'll wipe a lot of that off. I use pretty much Permatex Ultra Gray on everything except high heat. So I just get, my tube actually broke, that's why it's all over the place. That's par for the course on this though. All right, bearings in, races in, get your seal lined up. Then we use a really high-tech block of 2x4 and just run it down. Nice and flush. Okay, now pinion gear. I wrote that on the cardboard. I got 75 thousandths worth of shims in there. Crush collar. I'm going to slide this through. Again, there's grease on that bearing and the race on the inside. Now you'll see that this is not quite the press fit as the other side, but it does push through there, and you got to watch your seal. So I try and get these to start. It's just not starting. Okay, that gets them through. And you'll see that if you can, let me rotate this so you can see. If you look closely in there, you can see that there's really not much thread at all sticking through. Let me move this in a little bit. So what I do in this case is put a socket over it and just tap this lightly to drive this through a little bit, because it's the other bearing that's holding you. And I need a little bit more than that. I'm actually going to grab a better socket. Okay, now we got plenty of thread. Again, I'm not beating that in like a real barbaric way. It's pretty light. Then we take our washer, get the washer on. New pinion nut. Okay. Then I'll just run this down a hair. Again, not using anything real strong. I'll just pull this down a little bit. That's in the fucking wrong direction. All right, get our pinion nut on. And then we're just gonna take, again, a light gun. We're not tightening down at all, we're just running it down. Okay, we get that to just start. Now we'll ratchet up and start to set the drag on this. Okay, now that we just ran that down a tiny bit with the gun, again, I wasn't compressing this, so I'm not hitting it with like a 1/2 inch gun where it's crushing the collar. You can see there's still this play because the collar is not crushed yet. So now you take out, if you have one of these, if not, I'm not going to say it on video. You can go your own experimental way about how to hold this and crank down on it. I bought one of these. They're cheap. They fit pretty much universal. We're just going to run 2 bolts through this, and then you could hold, if you have 3/4, I don't, you could hold with, I'll use a 1/2 inch breaker bar in here, and then use a 1/2 inch wrench with the socket. And we'll tighten down on this till we start to get some drag, and then we'll check the drag. That we'll check with a torque wrench. All right, so 2 bolts, and bolt this thing on. That one there. All right, now we're going to tighten down on this a ways. Should really get a longer socket, but I don't feel like it, so I'm just in lazy mode. Now I'm going to have to get a little extension. Breaker bar on there, slide your wrench in, and then we'll just ratchet up on this. Alright, once it tightens, let go a little, and then make a few little checks. This is just kind of finessing here. Alright, still not enough. You do have to crush the collar a bit first. Okay, because this crushed collar is not crushing easy, we're moving on to, gotta go a little more barbaric. So some pipes and bigger stuff. I don't have anything 3/4 here, so I'm gonna have to do it like this for now. Hoping this ratchet holds up. Hoping all this stuff holds up actually. Okay, let's check that. Okay, what I had was a little bit of play in and out here. The crush collar was not crushing enough. I do know a lot of guys use big 3/4 stuff on this, or like heavy impact guns. I didn't. I don't have any here. So we're going to check to see what this drag is at here. And then we'll take a pinion depth check. And we're looking for 25 to 30 inch-pounds. We're nowhere near it yet. So we're going to go some more on this. Yeah, that's beautiful. Okay. Okay, with all the calibration done, make sure our piece is nice and clean. Put this in here. All right, let me just run these down real quick. The spec on with this tool is 25 foot-pounds, so we're just going to click these down real quick. Okay, sure that this moves freely. Always be careful when you're putting these in that you don't have this part facing down so you hit it. These will bend really easy. So what I do now is, even though I already did the calibration, I just give it one final check to make sure. Okay, so we just want this up. That's right on 0, if you could see that. So that is perfectly calibrated. So let's get a check here and see how we did. I'm gonna guess that it's not a one-shotter on this rear. All right, see if we can get some light in there. That way you can see a little better on the camera. Okay, so when you pull this down, pull this towards you, we're gonna find out about where we wanna be. Okay, and then we're gonna move this to the shortest point. 544.544. So again, check your directions on yours. For just this rear with this extension is 3.375, so we're going to subtract them. So we've got, you guys could see that, so 3.375 minus what did I say, 544 equals 2.831, and we want 2.875, so we have to go in a little bit more, so we got to pull a shim. All right, so let's break these loose real quick. And take this back out. Carefully place that down. All right, so we're just going to break this back loose. Ooh, I need that pipe again. There it goes. Okay, get your nut. Pull this back off. Don't lose your washer. Okay, and now I'm gonna do this a little different way than I normally would, but it's all right. You're gonna go very, very gently. I had like no air at all in my compressor, so it's very, very lightly. You just have to barely push on it to get that out. All right, now you get the fun part of taking the bearing back off. Okay, if you look at this, I flipped this upside down where it's not touching any part of the gear. There's a gap, and then because it's a straight, it only has the very inner piece of that bearing. It's not touching. Let me see if I can keep this light here. It's not touching any part of this because this little cage will break real easy. So you want to make sure that you're only grabbing that. All right, what's up guys? I ran over to a local shop and had them just press this off. I didn't want to beat it off and I don't have a press here. So we took out the 75,000 shims. I didn't have anything that added up to 31,000, which is what I need. So I just on a long shot, I took the bearing and beat it off the original pinion gear, and that actually had a 31,000 shim in it exactly. So looks like something's finally starting to go right here. So now we're just going to get this thing back together, pop it back in. So quickly we throw this back together. Got our gear, shim, bearing, crush parlor back on, which as you can see, already crushed. Slide this back up in the housing. Okay. Our yoke back on. Give this a little drive down. Same process as before. All right, get that just started. And ended up that this 3/4 spot was a little easier to grab than it doesn't hit the yoke. So I'm gonna grab that. And then we'll crank this back up. Get our drag set back up. check our drag. Okay, that is 40, so we want 35, 30, 25. I bet you it's about 28. Yep, let's try 30. Yeah, it's like 29 inch-pounds. Oh, 28. Hang on. About 25. Yeah, it's about 25, 26 inch-pounds, which is absolutely fine. There's no play in here. The collar's crushed, so that's good. Now we take another look at the pinion depth. Okay, so now we're back. Just going to check this. I'm not going to go through this again. You guys already saw how to set that up. Let's see if I can get a little bit of light in there. Okay, so we are... Actually, it looks better without the light. So we're straight at 0. So we know we're right in calibration. And we're looking for right at 500 thousandths here. That's 501. 501, which I'm totally good with. You're not going to change a thousandth of an inch. That's that. Now let's get this back apart and get the posi unit and the ring gear in and set the backlash. Okay, now we're ready to put the posi unit with the ring gear on it in. I'm going to keep the factory shims ready to go. I try and slide them in with nothing. It's just a little easier to get the unit in because with the bearing races and stuff, it can get to be a little tricky, a little tight, a little weird, lining everything up. Okay. Oh, is that stuck? Come on. All right, and as usual with this rear, the saga continues. So the reason you just saw that this rear, if you look, I had 0 shims on the driver's side of it. Huge gap on the right, and the bearing wasn't even going all the way in. This is actually, the parts store ordered the wrong posi carrier for the second time now. That's actually, if you're dealing with GM, there's a Series 3 and a Series 4. Series 3 are for 373 and lower gears. Series 4, which is what this is, just bear with me, is for 410 and higher. Richmond makes a gear. I just went by there today and asked the kid, I was like, why would you order, when you're ordering the posi unit anyway, why would you possibly order the gear at a 410 for a Series 3? And what it has is, if you look in the video just prior, if you back up a little bit, you'll see that the ring gear almost has like an extension on it. It's a wider gear. It's actually the wrong gear. I cannot return the gears. Richmond won't take them back, but Auburn will. So they're going to get me the other posi unit, and then the saga continues. I'm kind of almost at the point with this rear where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to put this thing together, and I think I'm just frustrated. I got to think about it. I'm either just going to sell it and just do a 9-inch, get a housing and build that, or maybe this is all a sign that the rear end of a break because it's just fighting me so much going in. But now we're back on weight with parts, but I'm just going to post this video up so you guys are going to at least get to see where the pinion depth is set and all that, and then I'll get back to I'll get back on it. I should have it. Today's Thursday. I should have it Tuesday. So I'm going to get back to work on the body. I'm still doing those videos, so I'll get them up soon too. Again, any questions, comments, throw them in the comments section, and I'll see you guys later. If you get a chance, do me the favor, hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you guys soon, man. Peace.